I beg to lay the National Budget Framework paper.
The Minister for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Matia Kasaija, tabled the budget framework paper for the next financial year, reflecting an increment from the budget of this financial year. Government is proposing a budget for 49.9 trillion shillings in the 2023-24 financial year, up from the 48 trillion shillings allocated in this financial year, representing an increase of 1.85 trillion shillings.
The House must also approve it by 15th of February. So you can see our timelines. Now, these are timelines we cannot amend.
Government expects to raise 28.8 trillion shillings of the budget through domestic revenue collection in the form of tax and non-tax revenue. Other avenues shall be through domestic borrowing, which is 1.5 trillion shillings, lower than the 5 trillion that government allocated for borrowing in the financial 2022-23 financial year. The argument fronted for the reduced appetite to borrow locally is for the avoidance of crowding out the private sector. However, the actual amount that is expected to be available for government to spend is 22.8 trillion shillings, of which 27 trillion is dedicated to domestic and external debt payment, interest payment and domestic arrears. The debt payment is projected to increase due to the increase in borrowing of commercial loans, up from the 2.45 trillion shillings in the 2023-24 financial year, while the interest payment is 6 trillion shillings. A huge chunk of the borrowing is hoped to come from external sources, and this is projected at 8 trillion shillings, up from 6.7 trillion shillings this financial year, nearly equivalent to the 8.7 trillion from domestic refinancing. Security is the single largest item that will take the lion's share of the budget at 4.6 trillion shillings, though this is a drop from the 4.9 trillion shillings in the 2022-23 financial year. It is followed by the education sector, which is allocated 4.5 trillion shillings, up from 3.9 trillion this year, while the program on integrated transport infrastructure and services is allocated 4.6 trillion shillings. Government is certain about managing the accumulated debt stock, which had increased to $20 billion in June, which is 48.4% of the gross domestic product GDP, up from $19.54 billion as of June 2021. The recent Bank of Uganda estimates out of the borrowing so far undertaken show that the debt stock hit 50%, equivalent to 80 trillion shillings of the 160 trillion shillings GDP as of November 2022.
If you are requiring debt servicing every year of $1 billion, and then your exports are not growing, how do you service the debt? So that was the argument. So the argument was we have to start stimulating exports so that to be able to buy the dollars from exports to service the debt.
Jackson Onyango, reporting for NTV.
I am raising a point of procedure. Yes, Honorable.